You know, looking back at some of these videos and everything, especially the Archie Sonic Digest podcast, if you will, as they get closer to basically the finale of what is known as the Mecha Sally Death Egg Mark II World Tour 2 arc, one thing I wanted to talk about yesterday, basically, and I think people did touch upon this, especially when IDW's 50th issue of Sonic the Hedgehog, the Sonic the Hedgehog comic, was released. One thing that a lot of people pointed out about it, and I think Mega Beatman pointed this out among others, is that each anniversary issue, in the book, in the Archie book that is, had a significant moment. Cyberpunk Jordan said the same thing. Every anniversary issue, when he was talking about 150 of Archie Sonic, had a significant moment. Mostly every anniversary issue. And one of the more significant that came out of the 200th issue was Dr. Eggman Robotnik finally going insane. For issues leading up to that, we had seen him kind of start losing it, because he couldn't figure out why he was always constantly losing to Sonic, no matter how brilliant and how foolproof, in a way, his plans were. And we all started to notice this basically after the 175th anniversary three-parter, where he basically destroyed Knothole and teleported everybody except for the Sega game characters of Sonic, Amy, Tails, and Knuckles, and the exception of Nicole, into the egg grapes to drain them of the life force to power his Eggland, or his Death Egg. You know, and when that failed, basically, and Sonic basically called him out for the fact that his machine may have, his Death Egg robot that he was piloting may have been designed to beat Sonic, that he'd failed to also design it to counter everybody else, which includes the Freedom Fighters and the Chaotix. And thus, he ended up being defeated and driven away from basically New Mobotropolis. Now, the reason this is significant is because, like I said, this is where basically the storyline of his bout with Insanity started to come into play. Because essentially what happened is that, well, Robotnik, from a storyline perspective, backup stories and such, started to slowly lose it. Like, he started to mumble a lot, much to the chagrin, but much to the surprise of even the likes of Snively and even Cubot and Orbot. I don't know if Cubot and Orbot were around at that time, but still, to basically Snively started to notice this. That basically started to notice that his uncle was starting to lose his marbles, or at least this incarnation of his uncle. And when 200 came around, that's when he finally lost it. That's basically when that defeat happened. It was the last straw. He couldn't take it anymore, and he flipped. He went insane. And everybody has pointed out how disturbing it was, even for an all ages comic. But then fast forward, not even mid portion, around mid portion, I should say, of the Iron Dominion arc, and Eggman is back to his old self again, if not more, I guess you could say, villainous than ever. Because during his time in the added room in New Megalopolis, his headquarters, if you will, of the Eggman Empire, along with his brief time in prison in New Mobotropolis, he started to basically gather all, even in his insanity place of mind, his insane place of mind, he started to piece all the put all the pieces of the puzzle together. And by putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, he realized that the reason Sonic always beat him is because Sonic is constantly connected to the chaos. Thus, he is a constant presence. So his mindset was, okay, I figured it out, I know what to do. Thus, he came up with the idea to gather the emeralds he needed to create the Super Genesis Wave, or at least the first Genesis Wave, to basically use the power of chaos against Sonic to rewrite the world in his image. And when that backfired, well, he tried it one more time, which led us into basically the first crossover with Mega Man. Now, the question obviously anybody would have, about watching this video and wondering what I'm trying to get to, as I make sure to check the time here, and I'm at 5.5 minutes, a little over 5.5 minutes, is, what is this all about? Why am I bringing this all up? Well, I just recently rewatched a little bit of the Archie Sonic Online comic dub of their interpretation of the original storyline for issue 250. Because you got to remember, according to several sources, around 250 is when Sally would have been restored. But because of the lawsuits, that never happened. And we ended up getting the reboot and retcon, or soft reboot and soft retcon, depending on how you view it. And so, because of that, we could never figure out we could never find out exactly what originally was going to happen. But a lot of people, through their own, theories and speculations, would add in these little moments, like, okay, maybe this would happen or that would happen. And in issue 250 by Archie Sonic Online, and I think even in the previous issues before that, we start seeing Eggman kind of slip back into his bouts of insanity, where he has to remind himself, chaos is the constant is the chaos. We even saw this in the original book. Just around the time they were getting towards the beginning of the Mecha Sally deal. Or a little afterwards. We started to see that little slip up. But that was about it. I think that took place in an issue or two before Sally was roboticized or afterwards. So something around that time frame. But we didn't get any more moments like that afterwards. And what I see going on here with Archie Sonic Online is, they are actually doing exactly what I feel and anybody else feels should have been done or would have been done had the official comic continued without any issues. And that is basically the fact that, Eggman would start once again constantly battling with those bouts of insanity. Basically, he would start slipping back into almost losing his marbles again, because just like before, when he destroyed Knothole and everything, just like he destroyed Knothole and everything, and how that whole situation backfired, and then the whole thing in issue 200, it, like I said, was finally enough to drive him mad. And in this case, and again, like I said, going back to that one panel in that one issue in the official book, and them kind of, I think, building off that in these other issues, that being Archie Sonic Online, to me, I think we can all interpretate that if you kind of merge the two sources together, and kind of, I guess you could say, look in between the lines and look at all the moments thrown in there between the official source and the fan continuation, that I think we can come to the conclusion that Eggman was, pinned in by the likes of Ian Flynn to lose it again. That basically he was going to have another mental breakdown in the story. And if the overall story, according to the likes of Ben Bates, was meant to go for 300 issues at most, we can assume that just like issue 200 was his first bout with insanity, we can assume that issue 300 would have been the same way, if not sooner. Like between 275 and 300 probably would have been the same situation, where he would have basically gone insane again. And these little tidbits that we saw briefly in one issue of the official book, and potentially could have seen in other issues had none of the behind the scenes legal issues took place. But now we're seeing kind of interpreted in the Archie Sonic Online fan continuation. I think, like I said, we piece that all together and look in between the lines, we get a good idea that yes, Eggman was gonna probably around the issues of between 275 and 300 was probably once again gonna lose his mind. He was gonna have another mental breakdown, which would have opened the door for a new villain to come in, or basically would have brought the book to an end. Because if you have the character break down one more time and you're hitting your milestone 300 issue or 275th issue, in between those milestones, what better way do you have than to close up the book officially than to have the defeat of the villain like that? And thus have the entire Eggman Empire fall. But that does leave one question. If he's going to go that route, what would finally trigger it? Would it be Sonic, once again beating him in a fight? What would it be? In my assumption, my speculation, is if that was the intended goal of the original outline, not saying it was, I'm just speculating here, and if that is the intended goal of the Archie Sonic Online fan continuation, depending on how long they go with it, till they get to that moment, you have to wonder, piecing all these little things together to kind of figure out what would have been the legit direction, or at least a pretty much close to legit direction from an official standpoint. You have to wonder what would have caused the trigger this time. And my speculation is, I think it would have been, as I check my time here, my speculation is, I think honestly it would have been Sally. Yeah, I think Sally would have been the one to cause it. Why? Because if Sally is roboticized, right? If she is roboticized, and then she gets de-roboticized by 250, according to people like Ben Bates and others, and then maybe she gets her new look, her new design, what have you, who's to say as we get to 275, 300, and we get that next final confrontation, that she's not the one that basically, along with Sonic and her friends, the reunited, resurrected freedom fighters, not only take down everything that is about the Eggman Empire, the bosses, the bots, and all that, and just leave Eggman by himself, where he basically knows doesn't stand a chance, and he's just going to try to go out fighting, trying to still achieve his goal. To me, I think the scenario would have had it be Sally being the catalyst for him to finally flip again. Like, he looks like he's basically like in 200 and 175, he's beaten down, the machine he's piloting, his ultimate weapon or whatever it is damaged, and he's trying to pull out all the final stops, even though he knows he pretty much is on the verge of defeat. And the one last person or character that pretty much stands in his way and pretty much puts the nail in his coffin, figuratively, is the one that he roboticized. And she basically looks at him, and maybe with her new look, puts out one of those blades and threatens to maybe end his life, forget about the moral code, forget to, end his life and everything. And then maybe we see him looking at Sonic saying, you wouldn't let this happen and everything. And Sonic, and all the freedom fighters are like, I don't know, it's kind of cool to be without you. And then finally he just snaps, and, well, not just snaps or anything at first, but he finally just gets to a point to where he admits defeat, he surrenders, and just when it looks like Sally's gonna still take him out and everything, along with Sonic's help, that's when they just, I guess you could say, just push him down with a finger onto the floor, or do whatever Sonic thing they could do to basically say, gotcha. And I think that's where he loses his marbles. I think that's when he finally just cracks again. To where it looks like he's about to be killed by the freedom fighters. He surrenders to try to save his life, and just when it looks like they're going to ignore it, that's when they just boink, boop him or something like that, and that's enough for him to crack, realizing that, they pretty much fooled him, into thinking they were going to go against the moral code. At least Sally was, only to get him to finally, surrender, for him and the entire Eggman Empire to surrender, and thus, reveal that they were never going to kill him anyway, but they just wanted to humiliate him the way he tried to humiliate them, and that's enough for, like I said, him to crack again. Now, I do apologize for a little bit of the pauses here and there. I'm also checking the security camera because my mom's here and myself, my nephew, so I'm doing the best I can here. But so I do apologize for a bit of the pauses. I'm also trying to think about what I was going to say next. But yeah, I think honestly it would be something around, maybe something like that, to where he would basically lose it again. Now, I'm not saying that's entirely true, and if Archie Sonic Online does go in that direction, they might do something different, and Ian Flynn might have had something else planned. Who knows? But the point that I'm getting at is, when I look at 250 of Archie Sonic Online, and I go back to that one issue where he's kind of relapsing a little bit, but kind of catches himself, and then I see it again here in the 250 Archie Sonic Online fan continuation, and even the issues prior to that, again, it makes me pretty much wonder if perhaps the end goal in this entire scenario, was for him to relapse. Basically, he would relapse back into insanity, and thus that would be a way to officially end the book on a high note, or maybe open the door for a new villain to emerge. The possibilities are, kind of like endless, in speculating of what would have been. But I look at the fact that, that with any story, no matter whether or not they're a comic story or whatever, if you're going to include someone starting to show a little bit of relapse back into something that they were once in for a bit, then that kind of tells me that you were planning on that person in that story, which we have seen before in several comic book stories. You were planning on that character going back into going back in that area, basically relapsing back into that situation. So to me, I think honestly, again, mere speculation here, but I think everything that was leading up to 275 and 300 in the original plans, when you piece everything you see with the Archie Sonic Online fan continuation and some of what you see in the official book, before the retcon, I think we get clues there when you piece it all together and you kind of look in between here and there, little tidbits here and there. I think we kind of get a vague idea, a very vague idea of the direction he was going to go in with the storyline. Like basically not just Sally being restored and everything, but the freedom fighters being reunited stronger than ever. But I think we would have had it lead in climax with Eggman relapsing back into insanity. I think that's what would have happened. Now, like I said, am I right about that? Probably not. But I think, again, when you put that little tidbit in that one issue, and then you have a fan continuation comic like Archie Sonic Online kind of put that into several issues, that tells me right there, piecing all that together, that that's probably the direction they were heading. Again, I could be wrong, but again, that's what being a fan is about, especially fan theories and fan speculation. You try to look at all the different clues, even from fan continuations and official, adaptations. You try to figure out, okay, let's look in between the lines and see maybe if we can figure out exactly what would have been or what was being originally set up and planned. So, anyway, though, that's just my theory, my fan speculation on what probably would have been the fate of Eggman in the original story, had it continued in the Archie Sonics of the Mecha Sally World Tour 2 Death Egg Mark II deal. Again, I could be wrong, but I think when you honestly, like I say, you look at what's going on with the fan continuation and the little tidbits they threw in the official book before the retcon, I think we probably would have seen a relapse happen. And I would assume between either 275 or 300 had things gone as planned without any issues behind the scenes. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. How do you feel about it? Do you think maybe I'm just grasping for straws, or do you think maybe I'm onto something? Let me know down below in the comment section as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video. Super chats will be open and appreciated in the live chat during the premiere, and super thanks will be enabled afterwards as well. But until next time, guys, let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll talk to you later.